What I'm about to reveal will completely shatter everything you think you know about intimacy and performance. Most people are living a complete lie about their own capabilities, and it's destroying their relationships from the inside out. You've been fed false motivation that's actually killing your real confidence. By the end of this video, you'll understand the hidden psychology that controls your intimate life and why everything you've been taught is backwards. This isn't just theory. This is the truth most people never discover. You're watching Talk Raw. We break down the chaos of love, sex, mental health, and everything you're too afraid to talk about.
Here's what's really happening. You watch content online, you hear stories from friends, you build this massive expectation in your mind about what you should be capable of. Your brain creates this fake heroism. You genuinely believe you know what you're doing. But then reality hits. The moment comes, and suddenly nothing works the way you imagined. Your confidence crashes, your motivation dies, and you feel like a complete failure. Sound familiar? You're not broken. You're just trapped in a cycle that nobody talks about.
This is where most people make the fatal mistake. Instead of understanding what just happened, they panic. They run to Google, they watch more content, they try random techniques they found online. They're desperately searching for that quick fix, that magic solution. But here's the psychological truth nobody wants you to know. Every time you do this, you're actually making the problem worse. You're feeding the cycle that's destroying your real motivation and replacing it with artificial expectations.
Let me break down what's actually happening in your brain. When you consume external content about intimacy, your mind doesn't distinguish between fantasy and reality. It creates neural pathways that tell you this is normal. This is what real performance looks like. But here's the problem. None of it's real. It's like watching a movie about brain surgery and thinking you can operate on someone. The disconnect between expectation and reality becomes so massive that failure is inevitable.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The moment you fail to meet these artificial expectations, your brain doesn't just lose confidence in intimacy, it loses confidence in you as a partner. This triggers what psychologists call performance anxiety cascade. Your motivation shifts from genuine connection to desperate validation. You stop being present with your partner and start performing for an imaginary audience based on fake standards you've internalized.
And this is exactly where relationships start falling apart. Your partner feels the disconnection. They sense you're not really there with them. They feel like you're trying to be someone else, performing some script instead of being authentic. The intimacy becomes mechanical, forced, unnatural. Both people start feeling inadequate, but nobody talks about why. The real tragedy? This entire cycle could be avoided if people understood one simple truth.
Here's the first principle that changes everything. Intimacy is an art, not a performance. When you watch external content, you're studying the wrong subject entirely. You're learning performance techniques when you should be learning connection skills. Real intimacy isn't about what you do. It's about how present you are. It's about reading your partner, responding to their energy, creating a genuine moment together. This requires practice, patience, and most importantly, the right kind of motivation.
Think about this logically. You wouldn't expect to play piano beautifully on your first try, even after watching concert videos for hours. You wouldn't expect to cook a perfect meal just because you've seen cooking shows. Yet somehow, we expect intimate mastery without any real practice or understanding. The pressure we put on ourselves is completely unrealistic, and it's based on consuming content instead of developing real skills with a real partner.
The second principle is even more powerful. Your motivation source determines your success level. When your motivation comes from external content, you're motivated by fantasy and fear. Fantasy about what you think should happen, and fear about not measuring up. This creates what we call performance motivation. You're trying to prove something instead of share something. Real motivation comes from curiosity about your partner and desire for genuine connection.
Here's what nobody tells you about performance motivation versus connection motivation. Performance motivation makes you focus on yourself. Am I doing this right? Do I look good? Am I lasting long enough? Connection motivation makes you focus on your partner. What do they enjoy? How are they responding? What feels good for both of us? The difference is enormous. One creates anxiety and disconnection. The other creates intimacy and satisfaction.
But here's the most dangerous part of the cycle. When performance motivation fails, most people don't question the motivation itself. They question their ability. They think they need more techniques, more information, more external input, so they consume more content, which reinforces the fantasy expectations, which creates more performance pressure, which leads to more failure. It's a downward spiral that destroys confidence and damages relationships.
The third principle will revolutionize how you think about this. Confidence comes from competence, not consumption. Every hour you spend consuming external content about intimacy is an hour you're not spending developing real competence with your actual partner. Real competence means learning to communicate, learning to be present, learning to read subtle cues, learning to create safety and trust. These skills only develop through practice and honest communication.
And this leads us to the most important insight. The solution isn't learning more techniques or finding better content. The solution is completely changing your motivation source. Instead of being motivated by proving your performance, you need to be motivated by discovering your partner. Instead of trying to recreate something you've seen, you need to create something unique between you and your partner. This shift changes everything.
Here's your practical action plan. First, recognize that external content has been hijacking your natural learning process. Second, have an honest conversation with your partner about starting fresh together. Third, approach intimacy like learning any other art, with patience, curiosity, and focus on the process rather than the outcome. Fourth, measure success by connection and presence, not by comparison to unrealistic standards.
The transformation happens when you realize that your current struggles aren't a sign of inadequacy. They're a sign that you've been using the wrong instruction manual. Real intimacy is about two people learning together, not about one person trying to perform what they've seen elsewhere. When you shift from performance motivation to connection motivation, everything changes. Your confidence becomes real instead of artificial. Your partner feels truly seen instead of performed for.
Remember this: every couple that has amazing intimacy went through a learning process together. They didn't start perfect. They developed their connection over time through honest communication, patience, and genuine curiosity about each other. The difference between couples who thrive and couples who struggle isn't natural talent. It's having the right motivation and realistic expectations about the learning process.
You now understand why your previous approach hasn't worked and why changing your motivation source will transform your intimate life. Real confidence comes from real competence developed with your real partner. Stop performing for an imaginary audience and start connecting with the person who's actually there with you. This is how you build lasting intimacy that gets better over time instead of worse.
If this perspective has opened your eyes to what's really been happening in your relationship, make sure to subscribe for more insights that cut through the confusion and give you real solutions. Remember, understanding psychology is the first step to transforming your relationships. See you in the next video.